Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan Sutherland, and this podcast is dedicated to helping families love God and use tech. Today, we are continuing the kickoff of our New Year's series. Typically, it's called Start Here, and just for the sake of people finding stuff easier, I'm going with just the titles. But the idea is we're kind of giving you the best of all the gospel tech resources for a year, right at the beginning of the year, to try to, one, equip you right off the bat with the new year with the resources you need to parent well in a tech world, two, to make them easy to find, and three, to make it so that they're all together, so that while our conversation will continue to cover similar themes, it's not quite so linear throughout the entire year. So I like the Start Here series. This one, episode 3 in this series, is covering the idea of how do we assess tech health? How do we know if our tech is healthy? We're using our RESET. It's an acronym that stands for relationships and responsibilities, emotions, sleep, enjoyment, and time. And in today's conversation, we're looking at, all right, how do I assess tech health and sort of what's some of the thought behind these 5 categories? I wanted to just kind of flesh this out a little bit because there's a lot going on in terms of the research and the reading and the work that I've done on this end. And I want you to feel equipped and encouraged by, because we're not doing a reset as just another way to control our children. We're not doing it as a fear-based approach to play whack-a-mole with all the bad stuff out there. Reset is a loving intervention because it equips you, the parent, the grandparent, the teacher, the pastor, the loving neighbor, to go, hey, I've noticed when you use that tech, this part of your life seems to change, and it doesn't seem like it's changing for the better. What's going on? That's a very Jesus-like conversation. It's a way to step into someone's life if they don't know the Bible. If they do know the Bible, like that is a step towards someone that you believe is actually struggling. And the beautiful part of it is you're not trying to fix them. You're not trying to get them to agree with your standards. You're simply saying, I've noticed this happens and bad things happen to you, right? Like that's a very clear, accessible conversation starting point. And the individual might go, no, that's not actually what's happening. Here's what's happening. They might say, yeah, that's happening, but I don't care. Or they might say, yeah, that's happening and I don't know what to do. And that is really that's the next step. This is not getting to the next step yet. All we're doing is saying, hey, I've noticed. I care about you. Bad things seem to happen when this piece of technology is active in your life. What's going on? And you can do this with a spouse, with a kid, with a neighbor, with a peer. The beautiful part of it is it's bringing the gospel to bear on the technological part of your life, that we're sinners in need of a savior. And as sinners, we're constantly looking for things that could fulfill us other than God. That if I just had this thing online, or if I just watched enough of these videos, or if I just made enough money, or if I just had enough followers, like these lies crop up all the time, and we pursue our life's efforts in trying to achieve them. And either A, we don't achieve them and it crushes us, or B, we do achieve them and it crushes us. And we'll see that come out. Your child listens to that music and they feel worse. They play that game and they act worse. They get that thing and they sleep worse, or their time is all out of whack, or their attitude implodes, or their enjoyment of the diverse things and the wonder of God, the diverse things God's wired them for, or the wonder of God, just disappears, and it all seems to get absorbed into this singular thing that they're now engaging. These are the things we're hoping to address with a reset. So let's jump right in. We have a relationship and responsibilities are ours. What I mean by that is, again, technology has entered the picture. So let's say we just crossed through Christmas. You got your child something new and awesome. And we'll talk in a future conversation. I wanted to say it now, that we'll talk more about what it means to buy good tech. But the idea is, you made sure it was safe. You confirmed that your child is ready. And now we're looking at, is the fruit good? That's the part of that conversation we're in. If you haven't done that, well, maybe reflect on that and we'll talk about it another day. But in a reset, we're assuming you gave this tech to them on purpose. The question now is simply, is it going well? Like, what's the fruit? And a reset's a really easy way to go, all right, when you use this, your relationships and responsibilities. Relationships are just with your friends and with your family. The reason this is important is technology has a way of promising to connect us to others. When we talk about sin and looking for methods in our own strength to accomplish our own goals, to see our kingdom come and our will be done, tech has made that promise through basically all of time. If we just had a tower that reached to the heavens, then people would respect us. If we just had things go our way, then things would be okay, and I could believe in a loving God. In this conversation, John Mark Comer, I love this, in his book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Anyway, that's another book with a similar title. John Mark Comer says, hurry kills relationship. Love takes time. Hurry doesn't have it. That is a beautiful point when we're talking about why do we care about the R of reset? Because relationships and responsibilities have to do with our ability to be present, our ability to John 15 abide. That is so important as a follower of Jesus, to be able to be fully present in the moment God's planted us in. And our relationships and responsibilities are a beautiful litmus, and to switch analogies, canary in a coal mine, our relationships will get hurt when our hearts are focused on the wrong things. So when we look at our relationship with our family and our relationships with our friends, or we look at the relationships our kids are having with their peers and with their siblings, these are great talking points. You can say, hey, I've noticed when you play that video game, you get more annoyed with your sister. And they might go, no, my sister's just annoying. You might go, no, your sister's always annoying, but you're more mean to her after you've played a video game or while you're playing a video game, right? Like, these are the things we need to know. Is it the game that's causing this problem, or is there something else going on and the video game is covering it? The reason I bring up that point is I have been in conversations multiple times, and you will as well, where you bring up something, say, hey, I've noticed video games. Use the example I just used. And the young person will go, no, actually, this other thing is going on. I'm really anxious about my grades. I just had a relationship that ended with a friend or someone I was dating. I'm getting bullied at school. I have experienced trauma online, either because of my choices or choices that were done to me by others. Like, there's any number of situations that can go on where video games, in this case, are actually not the cause of the problem. They're just symptomatic. I ran to video games because I'm not okay in this other area. And this just is my coping mechanism. And it might not be video games. It could be watching shows. It could be having an AirPod in and listening to music all the time. It could be whatever the thing might be. It doesn't have to be technological. Do people use exercise to cope? Sure. Do people use reading books ad nauseum to cope? Yes. But our conversation of technology is that there is tech that promises you're having a bad day, just come scroll for 30 minutes and you'll feel better. And many times you don't. Many times you see people that have lives that are better than yours. And the entire job of that, say, Instagram feed is to show you that people have better ideas, better bodies, more money, better lives. And therefore you feel bad, because what you do when you feel bad is spend time scrolling. Because if you can't have that life, you might as well live in theirs. And that is not what Jesus has called us to, and it will show up in our relationships and our responsibilities. So that's our first talking point. You say, hey, I've noticed when you use this device, app, when you watch this show, listen to this music, things seem to go wrong. Maybe, yes, this is the problem, at which point we simply remove it and we replace it with something healthier, or something else is going on and we actually need an entirely different sort of intervention that's very loving and very hope-focused, not because we're scared of this tech, but hopeful of who God has called you to be. And this isn't it, right? You are struggling and this is hurting you, and I don't want you to have something that is actively going to hurt you or others. Then responsibilities, it's very similar. If we're going to go look at what we've committed to family. We're born into a family. We're committed to our family. You need to be a part of this family. Includes family chores, includes family meals. Doesn't have to be dinner. Maybe you eat family breakfast, but you need to be there with the family and a committed part of that family. The rest of your responsibilities are the other things you said yes to. School is a priority for us. Sports are a priority for us. Going to church is a priority for us. These are responsibilities. And these two R's, relationships and responsibilities, also happen to be the platform on which we build the trust and understanding of what it looks like to be a digital individual. So you want social media? Great. I need to see you handle your real world relationships, your real world responsibilities first. Oh, awesome. You want to participate in that really cool game online? Great. I need to see you participate with others in the real world first, because there's a chance that online people are not as easy to get along with as real world people. Like, there are bullies in real world sports, but they're not as, I would say, plentiful and sometimes is simply vicious, as those in online sports. So we are going to build real-world experiences and then extend those into digital spaces rather than building digital experiences and hoping we can somehow extract those and apply them to the real world. It doesn't happen as well. Relationships and responsibilities. Then we have emotions. And the emotional piece that we're looking here is the idea that we would need this technology to be okay. When we're talking about emotional health, what we want to think about is that if we feel overwhelmed, if we feel anxious, if we feel sad, that we can recognize those and have real world ways of dealing with them. As followers of Christ, we're told to bring our burdens to the Lord. We're told that he understands all of our suffering and that he actually cares about it, that we're not supposed to fix ourselves and then come to the cross. But I love this. Our pastoral team at our church does a great job of repeating the phrase, the ground is level at the foot of the cross. That it doesn't matter how many mistakes you've made on your own or how many mistakes have been made against you, how well you've lived your life on your own strength, or how faithful the Lord has been in helping you have the faith by grace to trust and follow him, that at the cross, we're all needy. At the cross, we all have the same Savior and the same solution to our problems. And that is something we want our children to know for their emotional well-being. It doesn't mean never get counseling. It doesn't mean never make life adjustments. It means, first and foremost, the problem is a heart issue. That when I turn to things that are hurting me, I'm doing that because I misunderstand what God says about me. And that's where counseling comes in. How can I have someone who helps me turn my eyes back to Christ? As Romans 8 reminds us, that we set our minds on the things of the Spirit, not on the things of the flesh, because the mindset on the things of the flesh is death, but the mindset on the Spirit is life and peace. And that's not just spiritual positivity. That's not ethereal kind of like, so pick yourself up by your bootstraps and like one day things might get better. It's today there's an action point that you can take in your brokenness, in your sadness, in the worst things that happen in life. We can always run that to the Lord today, in this moment. And in that moment, he's present in it. He's not waiting for you to get good enough or to get over it or to figure out some big, long life lesson. There are lessons to be learned, but that's not when he shows up. He shows up now in the problem. And we want our children to know that. So if your child is using technology, I referenced the relationship issues or the responsibility issues that are showing up, and your child goes, no, actually, it's not the tech, it's this other thing going on. That could be an emotional signal as well, that this child is emotionally unwell. What I'm trying to get to with the emotional well-being is that your child needs this to be okay. The music, the game, the shows, the access to social media, the internet, just constant connectivity. And when it goes away, it shows up in fear, in anxiety, in a lack of sleep, in anger, in frustration, in any of these things. Anna Lembke wrote the book Dopamine Nation, and she talks repeatedly about how our brains can get overstimulated to the point where, as she calls it, hedonism, the pursuit of pleasure, not for another goal, but the pursuit of pleasure for pleasure's sake. All I'm going to do is try to feel good all the time. And she points out, I believe it's page 51. It'll be in the show notes. I'll reference it. But she points out that actually that leads to anhedonism. So your body can't feel okay because all it's had is pleasure all the time, and it needs to recalibrate. It can't just handle good feelings all the time. Your brain is not wired for that. It actually needs the work of life in order to recognize the joy of life. And if all you give it is the pleasure of life, it quits feeling pleasure, which is the problem with many of our smart devices, many of our digital escapes, is that it can hammer us with so much feel good. I watch so much YouTube that my brain gets so overstimulated that I actually don't enjoy watching YouTube, and now I can't enjoy the pace of real life. I'm just overstimulated. Her point, by the way, of how to deal with this is simply time away. What do we need when our emotions are out of whack? We often need, well, what God tells us, abiding. We often need to take a step back from overstimulation and recognize that what we really need is to be able to be present. We need the opportunity to focus, meditate, Christian meditation, setting our minds on the things of the Spirit, not emptying ourselves of thoughts and motives. And instead, in setting our minds on God, allowing him by his Holy Spirit to change our hearts. So we have relationships and responsibilities and emotions. And in both of these, yes, we're talking about technology, but we're really trying to direct our children to the God who loves them and has designed them for a purpose, relationship with him, and to give him glory. And glory is a beautiful thing because glory belongs to the Lord, so you don't want to take it. Because you can't handle the glory of the Lord. A little example would come from, we read in Revelation, when John, Jesus' one of his three best friends, the guy who Jesus gives his own mother, his earthly mother to take care of when Jesus dies. And then before he rises again, John takes Mary as his own mother to take care of her, to see her off into retirement. Because apparently at this point, Joseph isn't in the picture. And assuming he died, by the way, not trying to be like dramatic about that. But the idea being this man knows Jesus well, sees him in Revelation 5 and passes out, falls on his face as though dead. That's what we're talking about. Glory, the overwhelming greatness of God is his. We are not to take it. We are to give it to him, and we can give him glory by enjoying the life he's given us, by doing the work put before us, by repenting really well, gives God glory because we recognize we're not the ones doing the work. When we talk about relationships and emotions, we can give God great glory by addressing them well and by pointing out the problem, talking it out with our kids, and recognizing that God has a purpose for our kids that we can point them to in hope, not just away from bad tech. Which brings us to sleep. Does tech get in the way of your relationships and responsibilities, your emotions, and your sleep? On the sleep side, it basically is pretty self-explanatory. Matthew Walker, back in 2017, wrote a book called Why We Sleep. He runs the UC Berkeley sleep clinic. That's not a sleep clinic. Let me see. I have wrote it down. It's the Neuroimaging Lab. It's Sleep Neuroimaging Lab. Probably more accurate than a sleep clinic. But the idea is, he writes an entire book, and while some of it addresses dreams, his research on sleep is that sleep's really important, and that if anything interrupts your sleep, from notifications to a bad habit of watching videos right before you go to bed, now you're overstimulated, to playing video games, now you're overstimulated, to keeping snap streaks alive so that now you're interrupting a good cycle of sleep in order to wake up and do something that you didn't want to do, because if you wanted to do it, you would have remembered to do it without the streak reminding you, and that uses a feature no one asked for. Nobody asked for a clock on their direct messages or their texting, but it's very powerful. It's very effective in driving users, and a lot of young people use it, some older people as well, but a lot of young people use snap streaks. If any of these things are getting in the way of our sleep, then we're giving up God-given opportunities to grow and to learn and to be present. We're increasing our likelihood of experiencing depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. We're increasing the likelihood that we will not inhibit negative behaviors because we're sleep fatigued and the frontal cortex works even worse. We're increasing the likelihood that we will damage our opportunity to remember information well and remember positive information, because when your body gets tired, it releases negative hormones. And some of those stress hormones, like cortisol, make your body forget the good stuff. Let's say there was a study done with 2 lists of words, and the people who got sub 5 hours of sleep for that week remembered only the bad ones. Not only did they forget some of the words, they forgot the words like sunshine and happiness, and remembered the words like storm and darkness. So we want to keep in mind that sleep is important, yes, for the growth side, for recalling of, say, academic information, and for developing muscle. Endurance athletes, pay attention. But it's also important because when you don't get it, it's not just you don't gain the good stuff, you actually also gain some bad stuff like anxiety and depression. So if you have a young person who's struggling in those areas, monitored and healthful sleep, getting drool tech out of the bedroom. These are all important things that we can do. When I say drool tech, I mean don't use your smartphone as an alarm, because you don't need a $1,000 alarm clock. I mean, don't have a smart TV, don't have a gaming console, don't have an e-reader that connects to the internet. Get them a book, borrow it from the library, buy them a new book, say this is your bedtime book, you can only read it at bedtime. Like, do these simple little steps, because while it's not easy, simple doesn't mean easy. Simple means it's not complicated. But that doesn't mean it's easy to implement. But when you've implemented it, it means you're giving your child the best chance at being healthy, and you're doing the best you can to mitigate the harm provided by the tech your child might be engaging. Then what do we do with enjoyment? The 4th letter in our reset. If your enjoyment is impeded, that means that you had a wide array of things you used to love, And now it's just narrowed down to the one thing, and it's always involving this tech. So you have young people that they don't come alive and they don't get engaged relationally unless you're talking about their favorite video game, or they're talking about their favorite show, or they're talking about their favorite YouTuber, they're talking about their last experience of social media. This is important to notice, not because the social media or the video games are bad on their face, but because this is problematic. Your child is becoming less of an amazing human, more niche in the breadth and wonder and awe that they experience. And young people from the age of 2 have some pretty cool interests. I will say with all 3 of my kids, I can watch them continue to develop and put new facets on their interests. But like Owen is still organized and loves structure. And he has since he was 2. He would organize all the Tupperware. He would organize the cans by size in the pantry. Like that's just who he is. Henry didn't care so much about that. He has always been people-focused and story-focused. He's been amazing with words. He's one of those kids that gained words really early and then gained a wide array of words, and he hasn't lost that. He's a voracious reader. He loves and has a passion for riddles and jokes and puns and like humor based on words, and his ability to memorize large chunks of information verbatim and then repeat it is really high. And we've seen that since he was little. And with Hadley, she has been a human disco ball since she could make eye contact. She has loved people. She's a true extrovert. She gets energy being around them. They charge her. They don't drain her. And that's awesome. And if any one of them gains access to technology or begins to use technology that diverts any of that awesomeness that God has put into them, the way they engage the exact same subject, each of them could study a type of animal. And each of them will find interest in a different part of that animal in terms of how that animal works and how God designed it and how it relates to the rest of the world and creation. That's really cool. If they engage technology and all of a sudden they don't care about those things, all they care about is the next level, the next show, the next stream, the next opportunity they get to escape into that world, we go, all right, something's wrong. Maybe it's coping. But what I want to know is what is happening and what can we do to help you? Because this might have been good at one point. It was safe. You were ready, and the fruit, it's bad. And that's what we're looking at when we look at enjoyment. So I'm not looking at, hey, my child used to enjoy Legos and now really enjoys coding. I'm not looking at your child used to enjoy playing Nerf and now plays Airsoft. Like it changes. My child used to enjoy playing piano, but now he wants to play soccer. Okay. Like it's okay for interests to change. I'm saying my child used to enjoy, let's say my child used to enjoy playing with his siblings. Now he watches the show and he comes away and he's really snippy. He has a short fuse with them. Okay, I'm noting that. Your enjoyment, right? And that may be that example cut into emotions as well and relationships. But the enjoyment, how about this? My child used to enjoy board games, but now only wants to sit in his room and listen to music. Okay, so we have a pivot of interest to something that's not necessarily bad. Music isn't bad, but there's social isolation. There's a change of enjoyment. The board games lie just sitting unused, and that passion hasn't gone into creating anything else. It's gone just into consuming music passively in the isolation of a room. That's a talking point. Maybe there's a perfectly good reason. Maybe this is coming out in a passion because this child's going to make music as a way to express his or her life and emotions and feelings. Cool. But let's make sure we've asked the questions to get there and not just sitting in a dark space emotionally and potentially physically. And then finally, it's time. Can you set an amount of time to use with this tech and be okay? This is important because time is the same for everybody, and we've been given borrowed time in Christ. We are new creations. Our time is now bought with a price, and we are called to good works that God's prepared beforehand for us to do. So, are we using our time wisely? Enjoy your shows, play your games, listen to your music, and make sure that it's actually happening in that order, that you're using your tech. It's not using you. So that's our conversation today. I hope that it's encouraging and challenging to you, that you hear a reset and you go, you know what? I'm convicted personally. I absolutely hope that's part of it, that you can think of your own tech and go, you know, there's some tech that's using me that I'm not using it. I'm not keeping it, as Andy Crouch likes to say, in its proper place. I hope that's part of it. I also hope you can look at your children and go, you know what? There are some conversational points since Christmas or since their birthday or since that last tech entered our lives There's some things I'm worried about. And I want to make sure that I'm doing more than just taking this tech away because I'm mad at you or to teach you a lesson or because I need you to do your homework and you're not doing it. So I'm pulling this away as a hostage situation. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is saying, hey, I've noticed you've quit doing your schoolwork because this tech is present. So school's more important. It provides your future, develops your brain. Education is a valuable thing that God's given us. It's happened throughout all of human history. It just happens more formally now in a classroom environment. So this tech goes away until we can figure out how to handle the opportunity of our future. And then we can start to add some of this tech back, or maybe we handle different tech because this one's unhealthy for you. In my life, that's video games. It wasn't just education. It was all 5 areas of relationship, responsibility, emotion, sleep, enjoyment, and time. All 5 were negatively impacted. So video games, I don't play them anymore. I haven't played them since May 15th, 2011, and I've lost nothing. I've only gained. I happen to not to play video games, but I have a lot of joy and a lot of presence and a lot of opportunities to still be a big nerd. Turns out books and board games and movies provide you plenty of opportunities to still nerd out. And that's the conversation we want to have with our young people. We're not pulling away things you love because we're mad at you. We're taking away things that hurt you. I understand you're attracted to them, but if I'm a loving parent and you've asked for an egg and I gave you a scorpion, I'm going to remove it. Not because I'm mad, because I love you. This tech became optional because you are not. So that's our goal for today. If this was helpful to you, would you tell someone about it? Would you point them to our resources? We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Love God Use Tech. We've seen a lot of growth and use of YouTube. So check us out there, either through your apps or through your computers. And then would you reach out to me if you have any questions, Nathan@gospeltech.net, or again, just DM through Instagram, Facebook, or send a comment, I guess it would be, on YouTube. And then join us next week as we continue this conversation about how we can love God and use tech.